Bond. James Bond. James Bond is arguably the most famous martini drinker there ever was. And he's even credited in the book Casino Royale with creating a cocktail that people are still drinking today. It's called the Vesper. But it's an interesting literary situation because the author, or the character, however you want to look at it, calls for a specific spec of a cocktail and even the preparation method for the cocktail. I think that the cocktail that James Bond calls for is pretty interesting, but it's not how most people would make a martini. He famously asks for the martini to be shaken and not stirred. He does it with so much confidence that I think it would be hard to argue with him that he was wrong in the moment. With enough confidence, you would wonder if they know something you don't, even though convention tells you that that's not how you do that. Regardless, we're going to make 2 Vesper martinis today. One just like James Bond calls for it, although a smaller recipe. The one he calls for is a huge drink. And we'll also do a reimagining that I think hits a lot of the same notes, but is a little bit more tuned to my palate. So if you decide to make both, let me know what y'all think. Okay, so against better judgment, we're going to try James Bond's Vesper Martini. Like I said, in the book, he calls for what people have interpreted to mean 3 ounces of gin, 1 ounce of vodka, and a ½ ounce of what is in the book called China Lillet. Some people will use Lillet Blanc in this cocktail, and I don't think that Lillet Blanc is quite as good of a sub because Lillet Blanc doesn't have the bitterness that Cookie Americano does. Cookie Americano is an aromatized, sweetened white wine that does have quinine in it. So it brings the bitterness as well as the sweetness that China Lillet would have. We don't know exactly what China Lillet tastes like, at least I've never tasted it. But from what I've read, this is a pretty close approximation and a better approximation than Lillet Blanc. So that's what we'll be using today. So we're going to use 1.5 ounces of London Dry gin. This is Tanqueray London Dry. We're going to do a ½ ounce of vodka. I told myself a while ago I wasn't going to open a bottle of vodka on this channel, but for literary love or for James Bond, for science, we're doing it. ½ ounce of vodka. I think it's not even really that I'm taking particular offense to vodka in this drink. I just don't really understand what purpose it serves other than to soften your gin. We'll talk about that more in a second, but it irks me. 1/4 ounce of this Cookie Americano. If you recall in the first episode of Cocktail Papa, we talk a little bit about ratios. And in this one, because there's 2 ounces of spirit to a 1/4 ounce of the vermouth or the aromatized white wine, we're looking at roughly a 1:8 ratio. We will get some ice and we will shake. Here we go. Ice from the freezer, glass from the freezer, shaken martini. And while I don't often double strain cocktails, because this is a martini, I think that this is the right thing to do after you've shaken it. I'm not sure if you can see that, but that really pulled quite a bit of ice chips out of there. So glad I did that. Or else it would have been a martini slushy. And then for garnish, I will do expressed lemon oil. Grab a swath. Nice long one. Go right over the top. Little twist. Vesper Martini. Shaken, not stirred. It's not offensive, I wouldn't say. And surprisingly, it's not hazy. I expected it to be more hazy. Maybe there's just such a small amount of the Cookie Americano. And even though it was shaken very vigorously, I noticed more of the frozen glass than I do haziness in the drink. I've read that sometimes this drink will kind of present a sort of dishwatery vibe, and I'm not getting that visually here, so I'm pleasantly surprised by that. And yeah, I think what the vodka is supposed to do is sort of lengthen or stretch out the botanical intensity of the London Dry Gin. What we're going to do with the second drink, which we'll get to in a second, I think accomplishes that really well also. But I have to say, I'm liking this more than I thought I would. Okay, let's make the other one and we'll compare. So this gin, Tank 10 or Tanqueray number 10, is one that is distilled. I don't know if they macerate with fruit or they distill with fruit, but there is much more of like a grapefruity and orange and lemon citrus quality overall to this gin than London Dry gin. So they're made by the same distillery, same producing company, but London Dry is more classic and much more juniper forward, whereas Tank 10 has a lot more citrus going on, and overall, from a botanical perspective, presents less junipery. So I'm going to do another round with the same amount of spirit, as in 2 full ounces of spirit. For the last one, we did 1.5 ounces and a half ounce. We'll do 2 ounces of Tank 10 and then still the same 1/4 ounce of Cookie Americano and see how that presents in comparison. 2 ounces of gin and 1/4 ounce of Cookie Americano. Here's some ice, and let's stir. Vesper Martini number 2. We'll also garnish this one with lemon. And give it a taste. On the palate, this one feels a little fuller. It almost seems as if there's more of the Cookie Americano in it, which I know is not true because I just measured it. Okay, I'll try to keep this one towards the front with the London Dry Gin, and this one towards the back left with the Tank 10. So hopefully I don't get them mixed up. That would be embarrassing. They're more different from one another than I expected, and it is not as easy for me to pick a winner as I expected. I really like how the expressed lemon oil plays with the citrus qualities that are already in the Tank 10 gin, but I almost miss the juniper quality in the Tank 10. It's still there, but it's just not as punchy. I really expected to have a clear winner today, and I don't know if I'm letting myself down or if I'm letting you down, or if I just made 2 tasty martinis, in which case I've let no one down. This is a tricky one. I do like juniper probably more than most people do. And so I would even probably try this again, comparing the London Dry Gin and the vodka combo to just doing the London Dry Gin. But they're both great. And Cookie Americano is great. It does make for a little bit richer martini, even though it is an 8-to-1 ratio. Cookie Americano is sweeter than a like Noilly Prat extra dry or a Dolan dry. With that ratio, you would think it's going to be bone dry, but there's quite a bit of sweetness in addition to bitterness that's brought from the Cookie Americano. If I had to pick, I actually think I would do this recipe again, do the London Dry Gin with the vodka, but stirred. I just can't get behind the shaken thing. I don't think it really helps. It maybe made it a little bit colder at first. I think what it boils down to is that if I were tending bar and someone ordered a Vesper, I would probably make it with the vodka because that's what people would expect. If I'm making one for myself, I would be making one with London Dry Gin and Cookie Americano, no vodka, and probably not even the Tank 10. But these are both great. Cookie Americano is great. Gin's great. Vodka is okay. And I hope you try this at home and let me know what you think. That's all for our Spy vs. Spy Vesper Martini showdown today. I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but part of the inspiration for this episode just had to do with having a poker night at home and thinking about entertaining for a game and putting together a Vesper Martini. I haven't ever done this at a poker night, but maybe it's coming in the future. At the end of the day, drinks are for fun, and my goal with this channel is to teach people enough so they can share that fun with the people they love. Come and be amazed at what you can do. Cheers. I could also just mix them together. 2 lemon twists, 2 gins, 1 vodka, 1 aromatized white wine. It's great.